Yeah, I throw shade on Charlie Blackmon. I do. I throw some shade on him. I got a question in the comments asking about Blackmon and would you pay $35 for him this year in an auction? And I'm looking. I checked the Yahoo numbers. He's listed for about $31. He's going for 35. And honestly, no, I don't want Charlie Blackmon for $35 this year. I don't want him to be a specific cog or a piece of my arsenal. I was looking at the draft prices. I'd rather pay up a little bit for Acuna, make it up somewhere else. Acuna's going for maybe 40. You probably have to fight for 50 when he's in there. I'd rather pay up there. I'd rather drop down and get Benintendi. I think Tendy's going to be explosive leading off. Or I pay down, I'll take Juan Soto. I'll take the Phenom. He was amazing last year. The contact rates are special, and there might be a step forward in that bat. So I'll go Soto. Or I want to make sure that my first base isn't complete trash, and I'll pay down for Hoskins and make up that little bit of gap that I'm not paying for on Blackmon. So I went back to his numbers, and there is kind of a reason. I mean, I was a little against Blackmon, probably because he was a late bloomer. And then he kind of climbed in drafts, and people got lucky. He had that crazy season. He had that season where he hit a bunch of home runs. The steals weren't really there, but he gave you the power, and you're like, okay, I'm happy with that. I can take it. And then he just got overdrafted. It went over the moon. And if you looked, his BABIP was ridiculous. It was like a 371 BABIP. He was coming down. He was being overvalued. He was going in the first round. And I just, no way. No way. I'm not getting involved with it. Same thing with Yelich this year. I'm not taking him in the first round. It's not going to happen. And this is the unfortunate thing. It's going to be sad. Go into your fan graphs. Go to leaderboard for hitters. Sort by BABIP. Look at the highest BABIPs. And it doesn't feel good because you're kind of trained to think from last season, oh, these are the best players, JD, Mookie, all these guys. They're all up there with these ridiculous BABIPs. Those are your regression candidates. BABIP is the luck metric. The average BABIP is about 300, maybe 330. If a guy has an amazing hit tool, hits to all fields, and has a lot of speed, they can carry consistently high BABIPs like Mookie, probably a 330, 350 BABIP over his career. And sure, Charlie can do it too. But Charlie's taking advantage of the park. So Colorado, because of the thin air and the massive park and the gaps and everything, everyone carries a high BABIP there. But when they leave that park, they're not that good on the road. They're not the same player. So they're getting the park benefits. And then honestly, you've been watching. I'm not going to call it ageism, full-on ageism, but it's kind of age-based drafting. And so when I see Blackmon steals kind of tail back a little bit, he only gave you 13 and 12 and 12, and now he's 32. I don't think this. I think the speed cap is 20. I don't even think it's 20. It's probably 15. And then the home runs came back to 27, and he's 32. He's getting a little bit older, and it's just time for me to get out on Blackmon. I don't know what it is. I know he's a grinder. He's a good player. I've seen a lot of him. He's lanky. He goes up to the plate like RoboCop. He's got full armor here, the glasses. I mean, you can't even see him. And he's up there taking swings. He reaches a little bit. He doesn't have an amazing eye. He's chasing at like a 30% rate. So, no, I'm not paying a ton for Blackmon. The name recognition is extreme. You know, it's kind of like Greinke. Like, why are guys buying Greinke? Greinke just keeps going. So, welcome back. Welcome. Shout out to the subscribers. Yes, thank you. Loving the comments. Thank you for the likes. People are finding it. At the same time, it's on the low. So you just have a step up over other guys that are trying to study fantasy baseball. We're going to get into it today. It's going to be ugly. We're doing catchers. We're doing catcher. You know, I didn't really want to do it, but it's got to be done. We looked at catcher. I'm going to straighten that out for you. We're going to find out when you want to get in and what's at the bottom and where you need to land so that your catcher's okay. But you want to know that catcher is basically just working against you. These guys are not good. They don't hit for power. They don't play very often. Catcher and middle infield are the most injury-prone positions because they're either catching balls or foul balls hit them, and they're kneeling, they're squatting for the whole game. If a game goes to extra innings, the catcher can get burned out. You know, middle infield, they're taking the most heat, the most balls coming back at them, and then they got to deal with sliding into the base. So catcher's an injury-prone position, but we're going to get into it. I'm going to go fairly deep, but not like platoon deep because I don't really support two catcher leagues. I mean, that's another conversation when you're just taking every catcher that's ever ever even played, he's going to even get 200 plate appearances or something. You got to play him. You're in a 2-catcher league. You're desperate. But my other thing with Charlie, it gave me a thought, some self-reflection. That I have some biases. Maybe I was upset that I didn't get him that first year that he got good when he was like 29 and I was late to the waivers. And then I was just mad. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. He's 30. I'm not doing it again. And then the BABIP was too high and I was like, no, I'm not doing it. So you got to be able to self-reflect and kind of break down those biases. If I'm a Yankees fan, I just have trouble paying for Red Sox players, but it's fantasy. It's fantasy. You can't have favorite teams. You have to eliminate those biases. And so I had a little self-reflection. Maybe I'm hating on Blackmon historically, but I just can't do it. I can't buy in. Big shout out to the subscribers. This league is really brewing. I got some feedback. I got a couple guys that are like, yeah, we're serious. We're going to get in. So I think I'm going to form this league. These guys have dropped me some emails. It's going to be really close to the season, as close as we can get. Sunday night, probably, because, it's Sunday night. You don't have work. You're going to have work the next morning. You're going to stay up late. You're going to be tired. I'm going to throw you into downward spiral for the rest of the week. But that's approximately when the draft time will come. Look out for the invites. If you guys are in, if you guys want to get in this little kind of community-based thing we're doing, where everyone's going to be hungry. We all know how to draft auction. We'll get a serious auction in. Hopefully 100% attendance from the ownership, because then we can get some serious values and fights and, have a real quality auction, which is rare. So look out for that. We're going to keep it going. But let's just do it. This is the other thing. I had one more thing because I'm listening to stuff, of course. I'm listening to the experts out there, and they're talking about hard hit. And I'll hear some kind of claims be made, and then I don't hear them support the right statistics. They don't really go into it. And so, again, and this plays into how I sorted through catcher. I love contact rates. As you know, we've been talking about contact, and that really describes the hit tool. After that, we can look at hard hit. But if you're just looking at hard hit, guys can hit hard grounders. So you don't really know what you're doing. So you've then got to run it through StatCast at Baseball Savant, and you got to check barrel rates to make sure that all that hard is going in the right direction that you want. And so if you're not kind of piecing together all those pieces, you might just sort hard by itself, but not look at ground ball. And then you got home run to fly ball percentages. And that's another kind of luck metric why I'm down on Yelich, because his home run to fly ball was like 33%. That's going to come back down. So, I don't know. It's just funny to hear the experts and not state the right metric. And I almost want to go on Twitter like, oh, excuse me, by the way, like you were referring to somebody's hard hit or how they were going to do. And you didn't look at the contact rates. That guy's going to continue to slug. Or you didn't look at the barrel rate. But I'll let him go. We'll let him just say hard hit and just go, carry on from there. Let's jump into these catchers. It's going to get ugly. So this is an exercise in futility. And it gets worse as you go down, but I want to find you some safe zones. I want to find you something that you can tolerate so that you're not shuffling and going crazy all season. And I had a request to kind of break down some NL, AL, NL, because you guys are playing only leagues. So I'll just point out the NL guys, but I'm going to kind of mix them in. Here we go. I am the highest on Gary Sanchez, AL bat. The thing is, this isn't surprising. Everyone's doing it. So he hit 210 last season. The power disappeared. But we are all still infatuated with Gary. We are all thinking he might bounce back to be a top 20 player. And that there's going to be power, there's going to be lineup, catcher is terrible, and Gary's up there by himself. And so there's no surprise here, and he's still expensive. He's so expensive that I find myself waiting because the catcher just doesn't play that frequently to contribute, and I don't know how he's going to do. And he's had some funny injuries. He swung the bat too hard, and it pulled his forearm and the hip and the wear and tear, and I just don't want to pay up for catcher. But for me, it's still Gary. Your top NL catcher, Realmuto, moved over to Philly. So Realmuto put it together last season, and he had a breakout. But again, for a catcher, a breakout is like 20 home runs and 10 steals. Realmuto gets out of a terrible park. gets into Philly. He's surrounded by talent, so he's going to have some RBI opportunities. Roster resource shows him hitting third in the lineup. So if he's the best bat on the team, they're going to run him out there as much as possible. So Realmuto's there. But again, super expensive, super expensive. He kind of jumped Gary. It'll depend on the league. He'll go Gary Realmuto or the reverse. Realmuto's there. He's the safest. He's going to be productive, and now you have the best catcher in the league. He only hit 260 last season, so I don't know. Drop down. I just have this little floaty. He's just kind of floating in the middle here as Wilson Contreras, NL only. He's on the Cubs. He's an NL catcher. Contreras is young enough, and the issue with catchers is they are slow to develop. They can have a great hit tool, but when they come to the league, they have a lot of other responsibilities. They've got to learn to manage the staff. They've got to study other things relating to pitch mix against hitters, and they're learning about plate defense and covering the ball. And so the offense tends to kind of lag behind. And I think that's what's happening with Contreras. I skipped over him in a points league. By the way, so somehow I think I was just going too hard in the paint. So I caught the flu, and then I had a slow draft, but the slow draft was going pretty fast. So I was kind of doing that, and it was a mess. But I'm back. That's why it took me a little bit. I'm back. We're going to get into some serious strategy, probably in the next video. Just drop catchers here. But Wilson Contreras, I think there's a little more there. I think he's so young. I think he's such a serious hitter and has serious talent. And the entire Cubs lineup was just kind of trash last season. They talked about the hitting coach just giving bad advice, and then nobody could hit. And Contreras was probably a victim of that. So I like him at just the right price, at just the right kind of not too much. I don't want to overpay for it, but I like to sneak that because I think he could end up being elite or end up being the nice piece. But in a points league, I passed on him because he's got some swing and miss. And then it drops way, way down, because generally for catcher, I just kind of want to wait. I want to get something I can deal with. I don't want to pay up. I don't want to pop it first because there's just too much other starting pitching. There's too many other outfielders I need. There's too many kind of upside middle infield I have to get to. So I just find myself just letting these guys go by. But let's talk about this next tier. These guys are just grinders. We got Perez at Kansas City. Perez is a workhorse. He brings power. He's going to have some of the most power at the catcher position, 20, 25 home runs. And they run him out there every day. They talk about how for some reason Kansas City will just run him into the ground. He will play 4 to 5 days a week, rarely get a day off, get back in there, grind again. Perez is there for you. 1 year older. We saw the first flash of injury last season. But if you want some power and you want some plate appearances, Perez is going to bring that to you. Same group, I got Yasmani Grandal, traded away from the Dodgers to Milwaukee, NL catcher. Grandal broke out. We've always known he's got some offensive prowess. He's going to play a lot. They brought him into Milwaukee to hold down that catcher spot. He's going to get as much as he can handle behind the plate, and he gets a big park boost, and he gets a lineup at least equivalent or another boost. So Grandal is a nice piece. If he's slipping, he's somebody he's not kind of blown up. He's not Contreras-wise. He's not what you're going to have to pay. And if you want a really good catcher, Grandal is there. Drop down, I got one more little tier. And these guys are just veterans, 2 NL catchers here. Yadi Molina at St. Louis, and then Buster Posey at San Francisco. So this is Yadi. Yadi is a good example of the late emergence of when the offense kicks in, because Molina started, he was just a great catcher. He's heady. He commands the whole team. He checks base runners. He's just a serious baller. And Yadi started to develop offense. Now he's hitting bombs. Now he just put it all together. I think he has 20 home run pop. Again, getting a little bit older, but he's kind of like the ageless one. He just plays through it. He's a nice option. Buster Posey. Buster Posey, does he have an MVP? Posey's been up there. We all know Posey's going to hit for the highest average. So when you're looking at your catcher, you maybe want him to give you one thing, like just give me some average, don't kill me. Or maybe just give me the occasional home run, even if your average is terrible. And Posey's kind of that guy. He's going to bring you average, but the pop is gone. You got to watch out for health because I guess he's a little dinged up right now, and he might not start the season, but he's going to get that high plate appearance value. Sometimes they move him over and play him out of position. He was playing some first base. So Posey's there. He's coming cheaper than he has in his history, and maybe he gives you that 310 and plays all year. He makes all of his staff play up. He's a great catcher behind the plate, but we don't really care about how well he makes the staff play. We care about his counting stats for fantasy. Drop down another little group. This is where to get in. This is where to get in. NL only, you got Ramos at the New York Mets. And part of my investigation into the catchers had to do with where these guys are hitting in the lineup. You know, we like Realmuto, he might bat third. Ramos is looking like he might slot in the middle of this Mets lineup at like fifth. So they trust him to be a quality bat, to deliver some offense. When your catcher is batting ninth or eighth, he's a catcher, and they don't want him to hit, and he's in the back of the lineup. He's not going to be that productive for you. But Ramos, hitting in the middle of the Mets lineup is going to be pretty solid. He's a serious offensive talent. He had some injury history. He's probably 31, but he's good. Get in there, you know, if you want a good catcher. This is the guy. This is the upside pick. So this is where I'm paying in the auction. This is who I want to deal with. If I've got to pay $5 or $6 or $8, it's Danny Jansen of Toronto. Danny Jansen, prospect, comes up, hits, has some power, has some great hit tool. And by hit tool, I mean zone contact. I mean that in the zone contact hit percentage, Danny Jansen brings it. He's got upside. He's kind of an unknown commodity. He has the role to himself. They got rid of Russell Martin, so it's going to be Danny Jansen as much as he can handle. And it looks like he's going to hit pretty well. That's a nice piece I want. This guy is sleeper, but I pushed him up because of the hit tool, because his zone contact is so solid. It is Narvaez at the Seattle Mariners. Narvaez, 27, kind of got freed up. The reins came off. I forget where he came from, but now he suddenly has this job to himself, and the hit tool is quality. So if you want to wait or you see catchers going, no one's going to know about Narvaez. This is more of a sleeper pick, but I've got him up just so you know the value or the quality I think he has there. NL, back to the NL. This is just an upside pick. Francisco Mejia of the San Diego Padres. So Mejia, he doesn't even have the job to himself. Austin Hedges is probably the primary catcher in SD, but Mejia has that prospect pedigree to maybe he starts hitting bombs. Maybe he hits 25 home runs. Maybe he hits 270. Maybe they're forced to just play him at another position. Just so you know, you got Mejia. If you just need to spike some upside, and I'll give him some long leash. I'll let him go. I don't care if he's going to get limited plate appearances. He might only play, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. But when he's hitting, it's going to be really good. So my average won't get destroyed, and I'll just wait. I'll get his productivity. That's my upside pick there. It's getting uglier, guys. We had to do catchers, and it's just going to keep getting worse. It drops down a little bit here, and these guys have some specific traits, and I think you could live with. I got Wellington Castillo of the White Sox. Wellington is going to get freed up for some additional plate appearance. I believe they traded away the backup catcher that they were using there, so he's got the job to himself, and he's got some pop. He's in a good park. The White Sox, the Chicago park, balls fly out there. So you got Wellington hitting 5th or 6th in the lineup, getting him a little bit more RBI opportunities. He's a nice late piece. You got Zunino of the Tampa Bay Rays. Zunino has some pop. The average is not good. It's like 220, 230. But occasionally one will go out, and it'll be nice to get 18 to 22 home runs from a catcher. You got Zunino at Tampa Bay. Chirinos at Houston. Chirinos, former Texas catcher, moves over to Houston. He's going to have to share a little bit behind the plate, but in little flashes, in little streaks, he shows power. He flashes power. Maybe Houston works with him, builds him up a little bit. Guys are going to be on base, so there's going to be RBI opportunities. Get a little piece of Chirinos. I think he's underestimated because he was sharing the job at Texas. They brought him over to Houston because he's a good player, but he's old, 33, 34. A little bit of an injury risk. I think he's a good piece. Chirinos at Houston. And then we drop down a little bit here. I'm going to have 4 NL guys for you in a row, each possessing some different skills. And you're trying to take a shot. You're trying to get something to happen. I grabbed Barnes from the Dodgers. So Barnes was playing behind Grandal. We like Barnes because he's got some speed. He played some second base. He plays all over the field. So that'd be great. If they want to get him some extra at bats, he takes a step forward. He plays some 2B, but I'm playing him at catcher. Barnes is a nice piece. I think maybe there's some upside you could tolerate with him. Cervelli at Pittsburgh. Cervelli hits for some average. He's a veteran. He showed that he has some good contact skills. I think he's safe. He's old. He's not going to blow up for you, but he'll give you some average and maybe like 10 to 15 home runs. You got Cervelli. Alfaro was traded to Miami in the Realmuto trade. So you got Alfaro in that Miami. So the park is terrible. The lineup is going to be terrible. They could pitch around him, but he's not that intimidating. But he should get a full complement of plate appearances. He should catch for them all the time. He's an okay bat. He's got some decent contact rates. You got Alfaro. I put Tucker Barnhart in here at Cincinnati, another NL catcher. Barnhart, he's like a doubles hitter. I wish he had more power. I would want to use him. He'd show me flashes, but then he'd regress. He's probably 240, 250. I have him here just for volume, just because they like to use him all the time. He's going to get, the high threes to 400 plate appearances, so maybe he just accumulates for you. He's young enough to take maybe a little bit if the offense comes forward. You can look at a guy's doubles, and if their power matures, doubles turn into home runs when they're hitting gap to gap. So you got Barnhart in here. And then a little bit of a sleeper pick who's got the job to himself. I got Grenier of the Detroit Tigers. Grenier just looks interesting. I don't recall the contact rates exactly, but he should be getting plate appearances. He should hit a little bit for Detroit, and he's not completely buried in the lineup. So this is where I will use a little bit of projections just to double check, go through the different projection systems, go to catcher, sort by plate appearances, just see who with the projections for whatever reason they were showing volume and cross them with a couple projection systems and at least push up catchers that are going to be busy. And I think Grenier was in the mix. These next two picks, interesting. You got Keener Falefa of Texas. Keener Falefa has a great plate discipline. He makes contact, so he can stay busy. He's got multiple position eligibility. Not that we would ever play him anywhere besides catcher, but he could play outside of the catcher role and still get you catcher stats. I think there's some upside here. I like Keener Falefa as kind of an interesting late round. I'm trying to get cute catcher. Keener Falefa. A guy I love that I used late last season, a studio of the Minnesota Twins. So a studio, that the real problem here is they're showing him on roster resource in AAA. So it looks like he's behind Jason Castro and maybe Garver. So does it take an injury for a studio to come up? Why are they not just giving him a full-time role? So that's a little bit risky. I don't know right now that I can live with the studio because he's going to be sharing plate appearances. But if he gets called up, that guy can hit for average. He is an excellent tool. A studio's a nice piece. If you want to go for a blast from the past, you got Jonathan Lucroy at the Los Angeles Angels. They brought him over to help that staff. He's good at pitch framing. So, again, not that we care in fantasy, but some of these catchers are able to get strikes called into frame. Wilson Contreras is not a good framer. Lucroy is. Posey is. And that helps get them more plate appearances. But Lucroy, he used to hit in his hay. He doesn't really have that anymore. He's kind of a catch first. He's a guy just to consider. We drop down. We're going to get into 4 more NL names here. I got Flowers in Atlanta. Flowers really was sharing the role last season with Suzuki. I think he's sharing again this year with McCann, so he's not an everyday guy, but he's got some pop. He's got a little bit of pop. He's going to get probably half the games. He's okay there. I brought in Gomes of the Washington Nationals. Gomes gets traded out of Cleveland, comes to the Nats. I think there's going to be RBI opportunities. Gomes is a little streaky. We thought he was going to be really good, and he kind of regressed back down. He's okay. Maybe Washington, maybe he becomes the primary catcher. I'm not sure on Weeder's status, but I think Gomes is going to get some playing time. Here's 2 other guys. I mean, at this point, I don't know. I got Austin Hedges, who they really like in San Diego for his defense, but he's got Mejia kind of nipping at his heels as the more upside prospect, as the better hit to a player. But Hedges seems to keep getting his full complement of catching opportunities. And he's a big boy. He's got some power. He's still swing and miss. Maybe he can take a step forward. I wish they would just split these guys up and get them on separate teams, but you got Hedges. I got Suzuki at Washington. Okay, there's a guy who's going to be fighting with Gomes. Suzuki doesn't play all the time, but he's streaky, okay contact, okay average. He's going to be interesting just as a guy that you still might flip through waivers in case some upside hits. Three other names here. Jason Castro in Minnesota, I don't really want to deal with. Garver in Minnesota, I don't want to deal with that much. I got C. Vasquez of Boston. I think Boston splits the role. They don't have necessarily a full-time guy. They probably platoon. But you got to consider Vasquez. Boston lineup. Guys on the base constantly. RBI opportunities. Give him a shot. Hicks at Detroit. He was nice last season when Miggy went down, and I think he was either DHing or playing first base, and Hicks was getting you catching stats at other positions, but he didn't really take advantage of it. He's not that good. The power is limited. The average is okay, but Hicks is a guy you can throw in there. In your NL, I like this guy a lot. I like the plate discipline. I don't know if he's behind Cervelli, but you got Diaz. So if it's getting late in an NL draft, I think Diaz is a really nice piece. He may not play as much as Cervelli, but when he gets in there, I believe the contact rates are up in the mid 80s. He's going to make some contact, get on there for you. R. Perez of Cleveland, kind of a new commodity. You can check out this Cleveland catcher, Perez. Average, Cleveland lineup, okay. He's going to hit at the back. It's just someone to think about. And then this is just, your catcher's bad if you're down here. You don't care. You don't care about catcher. You're making it work with the rest of your team, but you got to put someone in the lineup. I got Chance Sisco at Baltimore. Just young. Nothing more to say about him. Fegley of Oakland. Something happened with the catchers. I think Lucroy leaving. It looks like it opened up opportunities for Fegley to be the guy. Maybe an unknown commodity. You could try some of that. Blast from the past. Brian McCann reunites with Atlanta. More of a pitcher's catcher of sorts. Brian McCann is old, but you never know. He's a veteran. He makes some contact. Park is good. Maybe some go out. Iannetta of Colorado. He's going to be sharing, I think, with Murphy or other catchers, but Iannetta gets his share of plate appearances. The Park's going to help him. The occasional home run. He's a veteran. And I'll finish it off with Kelly of Arizona, another NL guy. McCann's in the NL. But you got Kelly in Arizona, and I dropped him to the very bottom because news came out that Arizona wants to use 3 catchers. I don't know what they're doing. It looks like Kelly's plate appearances are going to be down even lower. They want to get some Alex Avila in there, who I wouldn't even trust. So those are the catchers. Those are how to sort it out. Let me just go back. I really think you got to give Jansen a shot. You could get some Grandal for premium. Jansen is the guy to land on back here. If you're getting desperate late, I'm probably a Castillo. Chirinos' average is so low, but there's some power. Maybe give Barnes a shot. Keener Falefa if you want to get cute in the studio if he gets called up. Big shout out to the subscribers. We keep making it happen. I like the feedback. You guys can give me some direction and some things you want me to follow up on. But this is kind of where I go. I like to get the MLB at bat. It's not that expensive for all the games. I get the app. I can watch on my phone. And as I go into the season, the stuff I plan on delivering later is a little bit of pitching scouting. Because you can look at the numbers, but the numbers don't tell you how does that wind up look. How were those calls being called? How did the umpire call the game? What were the velos? What were the up and downs? How did he look out of the stretch? How did he look in pressure situations? How was his mound presence? Observing some of those other things. What did the pitch bend look like? What did the curveball look like? What was he using? So I'll probably do a little bit of that, especially when new guys come up. I like to get in there, watch their first game, see if it's ooh and ah stuff, see if we can use them. If you like baseball, the at-bat, the ticket, or whatever they're calling it, Major League at-bat, it's good. It's good. So that's it for catchers. We're going to get after it some more. I'm auctioning this weekend, and I think the next video is I'm just going to lay down a strategy so we can talk about the strategy, and I'm going to bring it in. And my last thing I'm going to end on, let me see if I have it here, is we did this long draft. We did this snake draft. It was a slow draft, so the picks were being made. And I think you just want to, this is just a practice what you preach approach to taking young upside. And I know the news came out on Vlad. We got to touch on this. The news on Vlad, because Toronto is just terrible. And they're talking about, they might not bring him right up April 15th. And I'm concerned about it. I'm not happy to hear it. But maybe they drag it out with Vlad. Maybe they want to exploit his service time again. And hopefully it's not June. Hopefully he just hits 450 or something, and they've got to wait a month, but they're making him wait a little bit. I think it's worth it because when he comes up and if it's head to head and you get him for the rest of the season, he's dominant. He'll be there for the playoffs. You'll be okay until then. You can fill in. Some of the guys we got in this team, I'll just go through the roster. It was a kind of deep league. Francisco Mejia lived with Jake Bowers, even though it was late and the first baseman just got away from us. Villar, Vlad Guerrero Jr. took him with the second pick. We were cuspy. We had the 2 pick, and then we had to come down and get double tap on the cusp. Vlad Jr., Carlos Correa, he fell. I'm buying back in. Garrett Hampson, I reached. I'll take some of those park factors. Miguel Sano, power, upside. Mookie Betts with the 2 pick. Juan Soto with the 3 pick. Let's get it. Reach for Eloy Jimenez. I'm not going to wait. I want some Eloy. Cedric Mullins, who I mentioned, is going to break out. Ramon Laureano. Threw some Tyler White in the utility spot. 8 pitchers-wise, we grabbed some Trevor Bauer, Zach Wheeler, Herman Marquez, Luis Castillo, Yusei Kikuchi, Reynaldo Lopez, Alex Reyes, Jimmy Nelson. On the bench, there's some Carlos Rodon. Punted relievers. We still got another one to get, but we'll work with Giles. Threw Adames on the bench. Those are the kind of guys I'm going after. I passed on a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that was there that were the safe picks. There was some Puig or some Haniger or some Pollock, and I just went Eloy. There was Conforto. There was probably Hicks or Brantley. I was like, just give me Robles. So I'm drafting high upside. That's how I want to live. I'm going to do probably the same thing in the auctions. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.